from the School of Psychology, Katie Knapp, presents the assessment of attentional control. A round of applause for Katie Knapp.
I want you to imagine that you're sitting at your desk working on your latest project. When the phone rings, you can switch the focus of your attention and take the call. After a short conversation, you can then switch the focus of your attention back to your project. But you might find it takes you a minute to get back into things. This kind of task switching is something that we do every day, but there is that time cost involved. And exploring one's ability to flexibly switch between tasks is one way that we can measure attentional control. Now I'm going to get you to switch the focus of your attention and perform a short activity for me. I'm going to say a series of letters. I want you to remember them. In between each letter, I'm going to give you a math problem. I want you to solve it and show me the answer on your fingers. All right? R, 3 times 1 minus 2. L, 2 plus 2 minus 1. T. Now, if you remembered RLT, well done. You've just completed a standard measure of working memory capacity. This is an assessment of how well you can remember information in the face of distraction while switching the focus of your attention. And it's another way that we can measure attentional control. Why are these types of tasks important? Well, they're used by neuropsychologists to examine impairment following brain injury. They can be used to examine cognitive development in children and also to look at cognitive decline in older adults. So it's really important that we understand what these tasks are assessing and also how they relate to one another. So both of these tasks, working memory and task switching, purport to assess attentional control. And in fact, they recruit a similar network of brain regions. So if I was to ask you the question, is there a relationship between performance on these two tasks? Are they both pieces of the same attentional control puzzle? I would expect your answer to be a resounding yes. If someone's good at one task, I'd expect them to be good at the other. Shockingly, the few studies that have examined this have failed to find a relationship between performance on these tasks. Now that is perplexing. So to examine this further, I had young adults complete a series of switching tasks as well as a working memory measure to see whether they're related under any circumstances. I found a relationship in one specific situation, but not others. So my initial conclusion is that the relationship between these two tasks is tenuous at best. My inability to find a consistent relationship between performance on these tasks suggests that maybe one of them is not measuring attentional control in the way that we thought it was. My next study is currently being designed to examine this proposition in more detail. It's imperative that we know what we are measuring when we use these tasks in schools, in clinics, in older adults. Are they both measuring the same thing? Are they both pieces of the same attentional control puzzle? Perhaps not. But we await the results of my next study in order to finalize those conclusions. Thank you.
Katie Knapp.
Katie, thank you. Fascinating. You lost me at R, I think it was, which says a wee bit about my memory capacity, I sense. But look, the brain is a complex organ, and what you're seeking to do is try and find some answers around its operation and acknowledging, actually, that the next step is identifying what needs to be measured moving forward. I think everyone here tonight will know that perhaps taking 1 minute to get back into a different task is quite generous, or not, but that we are all distracted in all facets of life. So your research, I think, is going to tap into something that's not just going to be helpful for the workplace, but in all facets of people's everyday life.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, but I've forgotten what you were talking about. I'm too old. So thank you. No, seriously, one of the things I'd like to commend you for is that you are seeking to replicate research that does not actually prove the paradigm that it so supposedly sustains. The reason I commend you for this is that it's an unfortunate feature of much contemporary research that we do not replicate studies enough, because that is the only pathway to truth, at least for the present. So a big tick from me for that particular process. I think it's also interesting that you seem to have sort of worked your way into this through a kind of back door and suddenly thought, wow, I've got myself a really interesting piece of research. And I commend you for that too. So good luck with that next design that you're dealing with, because you might be able to show up some of the people who claim to understand that connectivity that they haven't really achieved very much at all. So thank you very much
Thank you
indeed.
so much.
Thank you, Katie.